It's funny here, people think it's a conspiracy theory, and the Latin word from which conspiracy comes from, conspirare, actually means breathing together. It doesn't mean people sit around and go, we're going to do exactly that. They have the same interests. Now, where do hedge fund billionaires like Robert Mercer have an interest with Vladimir Putin? Well, it's quite simple, as the Panama Papers revealed. They have their money in the same places. It was the Panama Papers, I think, revealed that Putin's best childhood friend, a cello player, has $3 billion stashed away in an offshore island in the Caribbean. That's very lot of money for a cello player. That's also obviously Robert Mercer. We discovered the hedge fund billionaire through these revelations, leaks, was funding the Young Americans Foundation, and that's links to when I talked about the Young Britons Foundation. So there's this archipelago, I call it a Commonwealth of crime, really, of a lot of British ex-colonial territories where dark money sits. The dark shadow banking system is almost, I think, getting to the size of the real banking system. And that money is unaccountable. And in the promiscuity of that dark money, their interests, an oligarch, doesn't matter if he's a Russian or if he's American, they say they'll sail the same hyper yachts. They all meet up somewhere in Saint-Tropez. They have the same interests, and those interests are quite clear financially. No regulation, no transparency, no tax. You know, this is a gravitational, an alternative universe where rich can do whatever they like and accumulate their capital. They don't pay taxes, they never fund the state. They are living in another world. And this is all over Europe. You can find when you investigate Manafort, who's up in trial in America, Paul Manafort, who's Trump's campaign manager. Obviously, he was working with this guy called Oleg Deripaska, one of Putin's top oligarchs. All the money funneled through places like Cyprus. And when you investigate these weird lobbying companies, you investigate so many things. The various deals offered to Aaron Banks by the Russian embassy and the run-up to Brexit, Aaron Banks, who was running the Leave EU campaign, they all disappear in the dark depths of Cyprus shell companies and then Malta. So I'd say that's a conspirare, that's the breathing together, the fetid breathing together of that dark money, which often laundered through criminal means or taken out the country to criminal measures, doesn't want to be seen. And let's be clear, it's not in the benefit of Russians. When I say the Russians, I'm not talking about the Russian people who are victims of this. I mean, the privatization offered by Putin at the beginning of 2016, Brexit, Trump, privatizations of diamond mines, privatizations of the oil companies, that was money going overseas from the Russian people to foreign rich people overseas. So that's where they are transnational. They are globalists. They're the true elite globalists. They rail against elites and globalists, but that's one key interest. But I don't think it's just money these people have in common. And if you look at, say, polls of Republicans in America, some extraordinary percentage, 70% or something like this, I might have the figures wrong, trust Vladimir Putin more than they do Barack Obama. Why would a Southern Republican trust Vladimir Putin more than Barack Obama? Apart from the fact he seems very close to Trump. Because he's a macho man. He rides around on a horse with his bearing his chest. He is an authoritarian. And he's white. And I think if you read Tim Snyder's great book, The Road to Freedom, which looks at the origin of Putin's, maybe opportunism, but the ideology he's created. The ideology where he repatriates the bones of a famous white Russian fascist, Ilyin, from the 1930s, is inspired by people like Dugin, an ideologue who gets Bannon to write in his far-right publication. They believe in that they're homophobes. They think the men are under threat, by Eurogays, they call them. They think Europe is filled with gay people or whatever, and that's a threat to them. They're also very color conscious. I mean, for Southern Americans, Richard Spencer, I think it is, various people have said, basically, Vladimir Putin represents the hope for a white nation. It's a white ethnic state. It's got religious. Russian Orthodox Church is fairly racist, or can be. I'm Armenian background, and I was in Yerevan in 2008, and I met a sculptor who fled St. Petersburg Armenian origin, because his Georgian friend had been stabbed to death by St. Petersburg skinheads because he was brown. That cannot be ignored. That ideology that crosses from the Confederate States to the AfD and Germany, Le Pen, all these groups, Le Pen, who's funded by Putin. Putin funds right and left groups, but predominantly right-wing groups. That there is an alliance, a convergence, an anti-liberal alliance, and elements of the anti-liberal left join it. But mainly their their sort of unifying position is there's a war against Islam coming. You know, remember, Putin got to power in 1999 behind in the polls when there was a terrorist attack. Chechens blew up office blocks in Russia. It's now suspected, it's not been proved, but very good journalists, that was the FSB. It was a deliberate terror incident. So there's a common thread. If you create, we are bound together as a white nation against the threat of Islam. Jihad Watch, Counter Jihad, all these kind of organizations. And they all meet up at like Renaissance weekends. There's a common strand between all of them. So currently you can see them working together any moment of the day, you know, about Brexit or Trump, Russian trolls, Russian paid troll farms, and American hedge fund owners, the far right in America, that make America great again, and to a certain extent, UKIP here. They're using information to wind up our fears of Muslims, grooming gangs, refugees, all their ideology. They use exactly the same language and the same hashtags. So it's a hybrid warfare. That's what's going on here. It's hybrid warfare is basically you win in conventional warfare, kinetic warfare. You know, you're attacking tanks, you're blowing things up, you're killing people. Here, you're changing people's minds. You're aligning them to your side. And it's not just propaganda. I mean, just to explain information operations, how they work, Chris Wiley explained to me when he made Cambridge Analytica. It's based on, like, in the Iraq War, in the Iraq invasion of 2003, information operation, you try to get a general, an Iraqi general, to a hill where you'd shoot him. You had snipers ready or had mortar raining in. And what you do is create a whole fake environmental information environment around him, which would make him think there's a vulnerable American platoon there or there are fake tanks there, and you get him there and you shoot him. You change the reality around them and you get them to do what you want. You don't change, you just change the reality around them. And that's what Cambridge Analytica did. That's what the Russian troll farms try to do. You know, there are all these rapists coming in from Malmo, you know, the streets filled, they put fake information out there to make you think you're going to be attacked. And that's how they make you do things. And goes back, Putin is brilliant at this because he has a Surkov, his kind of advisor, who was an artist, he learned this way that you win both ways. Even if people are not persuaded of this fake news, they lose trust in the system. And cynicism in information operations, passivity, is just as effective as moving that person the hill. If somebody goes, well, I don't know which side is true. Maybe Britain did Novichok itself with nerve gas. Maybe it was MI6. Yes, maybe, I don't know. So who cares? Then you become politically deactivated. You lose your outrage. It's like voter suppression. One of the big things Cambridge Analytica would do would be suppress the vote. You know, put people off, confuse them, what day it was. We think the Russians may not have hacked the tolls in the American election, but they may have deregistered people. So they turned up and they couldn't vote in those key constituencies in Ohio and places like that, during the presidential election. So we have an information warfare, and the thing about information warfare, this is like the 1930s. I always think that 2008 was like 1929, and so 10 years later, 1929 was 1939, you had war. 2008 was our crash, and we're now in 2018. We are at war, but it's a psychic war. It's a war that's being fought in our own minds every day around what we believe or not, what's true. The only way to fight this war is to fight for truth. You know, the only way is you have to, as a corporate, you can't trust the corporate global media. Some of it's owned by Russian interests or American corporate interests. They're not telling you the truth. As a journalist, I have seen British media organisations, including the BBC, tell absolute lies, for example, about the Vote Leave, law breaking. They say it's allegations when it's proven law breaking. So what you have to do is fight that battle every day in your own head. Who do I trust? What is true? Can I fact check? And don't be in this post-truth world, because what they say is if nothing is true, everything is possible. In the world of cynicism, it happened in In Weimar Republic, everything's cynical, and then the real hard guys take power because we have no control over the environment. They don't care about cynicism. We are deactivated. And so every morning, check the facts of that truth. And people say, does truth matter? I've studied under postmodernism, oh, truth's relative. Well, it's not that relative. It really matters. Is this cup of tea you gave me is tea or it's polonium? I mean, that really matters. And if there was Holocaust happened or didn't happen, that matters. If the world is flat or round, that matters. Whether climate change is happening or not, that matters. And we can't just fall back into this artistic frame of mind. It's all opinion. Well, it isn't opinion. It's not opinion whether you've got a nerve agent on your door handle. You can't just think your way around that and change your mind because you might die. So I think that's where we've all, from any shade of political opinion, in a way, there's many bad things about the Enlightenment. One of them, of course, is colonialism. But the Enlightenment principle that there's evidence, there are common, not even shared values, shared truths, that we share the same world, that we don't want to drink polonium. I think we have to find a kind of popular front fighting for truth.